All right, good morning, everyone. Um, Very excited to be doing this. This is going to be new for us, something we haven't done before. So I wanted to do something like this to really get a lot more information going out to people and being able to connect and talk to people a lot more. So this is planning on being the first of a series of webinars on transportation safety. My name is Grant Taylor. I am the Safety Program Manager at the Eastgate Regional Council of Governments. So this is going to be in a webinar format. Just want to go over a couple quick things here. Planning on having it being about a 30-minute presentation followed by some open discussion. And I'll let people talk about what's going on in their communities or questions they have or safety issues they might want to know more about. There is a Q&A option that you should be able to select, or you can hit raise hand to bring stuff up that way too. If something comes up, and feel free to go ahead and let me know if there's anything you want more information about or you want to know more about. We are recording the meeting and it's going to be getting posted online afterwards so that people who can't be here will be able to still get in the information. And if you want to go back and look at something later, it'll still be there. If you have any additional questions after the webinar, or if you don't feel comfortable even bringing up something during the webinar, feel free to reach out, email me, call me. Love talking about safety stuff with anybody that's interested and wants to know more, wants to do more in their communities. So one start out at least just with some quick crash statistics, at least for the Mahoning and Trumbull County areas. So we had in 2025, looking at 9,859 total crashes between the two counties over the year. 253 of those were classified as a fatal or serious injury crash, with 37 of them being fatal crashes. And some other data on here about what's been going on over the years, like looking back all the way for the last 10 years. And they've gone up and down a little bit here and there, down a little bit overall, but definitely not enough. That's why we're still trying to push all the time for more stuff to be done. So one of the big things that we are pushing for and looking at has been the safe system approach. So the safe system approach is looking at it from a few different directions. The important thing remembering is that death and serious injuries are unacceptable. Trying to make sure that no matter what, we're always looking at how we can reduce those. It's realizing that humans are going to make mistakes. There's not going to be perfect drivers on the road, and we need to consider that when we're looking at our roads. Humans are vulnerable, which is a really important aspect of looking at crashes, because of the fact that if there is a crash, that it can very easily result in injuries or death. A responsibility is shared. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not just the drivers or what type of roads there are or the education that's going into provide to these people. And so it's important to know that there's not one group that can make all this stuff work. That safety is proactive, is being sure that we're looking forward to what can be changed in the future. It's not always going to be looking at where we've had problems, but it comes down to a lot of looking ahead to where we think there could be problems and seeing how we can prevent anything from happening there. And redundancy is crucial, is a really big and important part of this, because just because you set a speed limit lower to reduce the speeds that people are traveling, stuff still will happen. So having a education is going to provide them with details about how to handle driving on the roads, or having roadways that are clear on the side so that if they do speed and lose control, they might still will have a better chance of not having being involved in a crash. So the important stuff that goes into this, of course, is safer people, which is going down to the education, providing people with information about driving or providing information about not driving impaired. It's getting that to make sure that they are all knowledgeable and are safe drivers. Safer vehicles is an important aspect of this, of looking at what type of safety features are in cars and how cars are able to keep their passengers safe while providing them information without distractions. Safer speeds is a big part of it because speeding is usually a really big component of the severity of these accidents. Safer roads is making sure that the roads are safe. They are engineered to the best of our ability to keep people on the roads. And the last important part comes down to the post-crash care, which is one of the newer things that usually gets tied into this, which is the fact of being able to have quick responses to accidents, being able to know what to do, clear the roads quickly, and also being able to have that information available for the next time of what type of stuff was going on so it can be looked at better. So when it comes down to looking at road safety is one of the things, what can be done throughout these different things. So some of the big things that come up a lot for what we are looking at and talking about is your low cost systemic treatments. And these are typically come down to your bigger projects that cover bigger areas, but might be smaller impact type stuff. Um, it's not looking at one location, but you might be looking at an entire corridor of roadways and saying, hey, we need to look at what type of solutions could come up in these areas, such as if there's a concern, there might be roadway departures going along that entire area and putting in wider edge strips and rumble strips or whatever the solution may be. And these are typically looking at not necessarily where crashes have occurred, but looking at the roadway and seeing what type of issues can come up in these areas by comparing that with other places that there have been issues. A lot of this one also comes down to their stuff like the FHWA's proven safety countermeasures that they have, which is a large list of really good ideas for projects. ODOT has a lot of great information for within their systemic safety planning funds with looking at pedestrian stuff or roadway departures. Another big part of looking at safety is design-based solutions. And this is going to be typically is used as something like your high priority crash locations or where you've had a lot of issues come up. And this is typically going to be the big projects that come through where that it's looking at one large area and trying to figure out what not large area, one specific location has had a lot of issues and maybe doing complete redesigns or looking at what else you can do in that specific location. So another one is the planning and policy tools. And this is typically be more of where the first steps come for looking at a lot of the safety stuff. It's developing regional safety plans or location specific plans. Safe Routes to Schools is a really great program that is designed around planning for safety for school areas. Also can be doing though policy changes for your community and looking at your having speed management programs. Development of a complete streets policies are really big for a lot of these communities where you're looking at the trying to tie in how pedestrians and bikes and the entire community is changes along with the street area. There's also a lot of great active transportation focuses for planning where that it's going through and looking at how bikes and pedestrians can be tied in and connected to a network that has traditionally been more focused on the cars, but there's been a lot more interest in making sure that bikes and pedestrians are safe and trying to tie that in, as well as helping to get people out and making healthier communities and giving better access to schools and parks and libraries and however people might want to go these different places. Um, so your traffic safety barriers. This is sort of why we wanted to do this series and what a large part of this is about. And safety is a changing environment over time. There's been some changes between what type of things are being looked at or what's the most important thing. And there's also lots of studies being done all the time on different methods of trying to help out with roadways. Um, some important parts about why this is important is going to stuff like awareness gaps. And for a lot of it is there are lots of people that are involved in making decisions throughout the communities, whether it's going from the engineers or councilmen, mayors, trustees, community groups that are trying to reach out and make changes in their communities. And there's so much information out there that not everybody's going to have full knowledge about the safety stuff and want to have this information easily provided to anybody that might have interest and wants to know more. Uh, Funding confusion can be a really big thing because changing funding programs over time. So want to also be able to provide that information for what type of funding is out there and how to go about getting this funding, and being able to set up connections for how people can better access or know about these sources of funding. And then as it changes also and as new programs become available, this will be a way to provide that information out as well. Data accessibility is a really big one because that's one of the things that me personally is my focus is usually looking at data type stuff. It's what really keeps me interested in a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of data out there, and we have access to a lot of data and are able to look through a lot of data, and we can also provide access to other data. And whether it's looking at road conditions or pavement conditions or what the roads are set up as, or looking back and going through what type of crashes have occurred at specific locations, or doing a quick analysis to look at specific locations to help out and figure out if there's something that needs to be done or looked at. So that's going to be a big thing, along with providing information about what type of bike or pedestrian network might be in an area or where it could connect to. And there's a lot of great data out there, and want to be able to share this information. Jurisdiction complexity is always a big issue for some projects. There's a lot of stuff that comes up, along with roadways that might split between communities. That becomes a big issue, or how to connect together a project that might connect two communities is a longer corridor, and that type of information can get confusing for who the roads are owned by and who is responsible for the roadways and who should lead that. And it's one of the things that we are able to help with and can provide information on. One of the other big barriers that comes up, though, is that we've always done it this way. And as I said, safety is changing over time, and there's new information comes out, and people find better ways to do things and better ways to look at things sometimes. And this can help with providing this newer information that's come out and looking at new ways of doing things and how it might be able to do stuff better or at a wider spread. So then the goals of this series, what we're hoping for, is keeping topics short and entertaining. So we've got a lot of information that I would love to be able to get out and connect to people with, and a lot of our meetings just don't have the right format for being able to connect with these specific groups and provide lots of little bits of information. So this will be great for being able to get this out. Want to have education focused on topics that are concerned for people in the community. We've got a list of topics that I've got planned out that I want to talk about and go into further details about. But I also want that if there's issues that come up or things that people in the community are concerned about, we want to be able to tie that in and change the meetings around, plans around a little bit, and make sure that we're providing the information that's what you feel like you need as well. Want to make sure that we have easy access to this information, dialogue on the side. We want to make sure that it's provided to you guys. We want to do a webinar format so it's easy for people to join in. And also we want to be able to connect. We don't want it to just be here's some data and here's some information and go off and do it at one. We want to hear from where you guys are concerned and what you want to talk about. And part of it's being a connection developing. I don't want it to just be the presentation, but I want you to know that Eastgate's organization is here for you, and we gladly will be able to talk about safety stuff and how we can help your community. So got some different areas of focus that is planning on being talked about as we go into this. So one of the things a lot is protecting pedestrians and bicyclists. Going to be having information about, the visibility, crossings, infrastructure, along with doing stuff about walkways, bike lanes, road diets. Want to talk more about preventing run off the road crashes, and some that's going to be looking at, how curbs affect it, what rumble strips can be done, edge lines, how they can have an impact, but also having a rural safety focus. We've got a lot of countermeasures that are put out by Routes, which is a rural federal organization. It's got some great countermeasures as well we want to go into. Safer intersections, let me talk about stuff like roundabouts, turn lanes, signal improvements, and also though the systemic low cost fixes going across and doing multiple intersections. We're looking at how something can change there. We've also got managing speed and risk, looking at speed limits, how cameras can affect it, lighting, also some information on what road safety audits are and what they can be done and how they can help out. We have the planning, funding, and data areas I want to look at, which is, what safety planning is, what type of funding programs are out there and how we can help provide information about that, what type of resources are available, and also a little bit about using the data effectively and showing off what type of data sources are out there and how you can utilize that to help out with your planning efforts. And then the special topics I want to also go into is going to be the Safe Routes to Schools, which is an absolutely amazing program through ODOT, and along with the rural countermeasures going more into those ones. Now, it's not planned out for each of these to be like 6 different meetings. These are just 6 categories of some of the topics that I'm planning on talking about. So going into who should be attending this type of stuff, the goals, which realistically comes down to basically anybody. It's elected officials. It's going to be engineers, planners, safety advocates, community groups, anybody else that has an interest in traffic safety as well. Overall, the focus, this will be a lot more focused towards the beginning groups of the officials, engineers, planners, because that's a lot more of who we interact with. But the information that we're going to be giving out is still going to be helpful, I feel, to anybody else that's interested, whether they're somebody that's just passionate about what's going on in their community or a group that's trying to focus on something like active transportation. So I'm going to do a quick switch over here to our website real quick. I want to give some quick information about what we got some stuff on our website. So on our website, we have up at the top, we have a section for programs. Under that pops up transportation and can go down to safety planning. You got 2 different little categories here, safety planning overview and safe routes to schools. If you go under safe routes to schools, it gives some information about the safe routes to schools, that program, along with some information here helping to look at what's around the schools, where types of crashes can happen. So it's a great tool, can be very useful for doing any safe routes to schools planning. But the bigger one is the safety planning overview, which if you come here, it's got some information about it and it has a PDF, which is our safety plan, or view the safety site, which is a site devoted to our safety plan. Pulling this up, it comes in for a little bit of information, provides directly to our safety plan, is embedded right in here as well. Contact information for me. And then it goes into a lot of information such as our performance measures that we look at, which will provide a lot of the different data about the crashes for over the years for the region. You can change by year, you can change by what county you're looking at, you can even break it down into specific communities if you're interested in looking at what the data is for your community. We also have some crash mapping information here for the crash locations, which just gives some basic information about where all the crashes that occurred for the last 5 years. You get some little charts down here to break it down. You can zoom in, zoom out, look at everything that way. We have our safety priority locations information, which is throughout our safety plan, we have locations that we consider to be high priority for us. We've done a lot of analysis over the data about these communities. We've met with lots of communities and talked to them about issues that they have. And we've got a listing of locations that we feel are the highest risk, or they're the locations that should have projects looked at. And there's suggestions for some of these locations. We've got our safety data GIS atlas we put together. which you can come onto this site and you can load up some different maps that we've got. And within that, then is once you pull a map up, you can even actually add some extra data into it to look at it and sort of do just a little bit of playing around with data. We got a section here on focus reports, which comes in and does location studies that we've looked at, maps of the counties that we've done for safe communities, which give information like distracted driving crashes or impaired crashes throughout the counties. And regional maps is category just for little bits of maps that we've done for different regions. And then there's additional resources, which is some safety links. They'll give you some great resources to check out and look at. So that is the main focus of what we're looking at, of what the goal of this series is going to be, and what type of information we're hoping to provide, how we're hoping this will be developed. Planning on doing these once a month, third Monday of the month, or whichever Monday this one is. So I have more invites coming out there. Do have a few things that had come up before. We had somebody had sent some questions in that there was concern about pedestrian bicyclists on the road with dark clothes, bikes, e-bikes riding against traffic, which is definitely a concern. It's something I've actually had a lot of thought in. We've been looking at how we might be able to do some work there in the past. It's a big issue everywhere that comes up and is hard to do a lot with because of the fact that it's hard to control people's specific behavior in a lot of these cases. A lot of it looks at education, about how educating in the schools, looking at groups that are doing education there. Something that definitely needs to be talked about more, and some of that comes down to lighting and figuring out where people may be walking and what type of stuff should be looked at for those specific areas possibly. We had a question about MLK in Youngstown, from Gypsy Lane to downtown Youngstown with streetlights. A lot of that can come down to looking at what the who's in charge of, first off, owning streetlights can be an issue. There's programs that help with updating that one. There can be stuff looking at systemic, sometimes can be one of the things that you're considering, is looking at if there's lighting over corridors and how that type of information could come up and what you can do there, and seeing if there's options. Belmont Avenue had pedestrian crossings near Liberty Plaza. Belmont is a really big concern for, I know, a lot of community members around. And I know there's a lot of efforts being done right now to help with some of that area. So at this point, I wouldn't want to comment too much on it without seeing how those type of changes are going to help and what can be done, what can be built upon what's already being done. And we had a question came in about what can be done to ensure that First Energy is getting streetlights replaced in a time efficient manner. That is a little bit outside of my domain with dealing with the actual energy companies. I definitely know it's a concern. I know documentation for what's going on, and if there can help, at least showing off there's widespread concern, it can help putting that information together, documenting when lights go out if it's possible. As for that, beyond that, it might get more into looking at policy. So funding sources through Eastgate for safety improvements outside of safety improvements for crossings outside of safe routes to schools. So within looking at something like that, there is some stuff like we have a TAP program, which is transportation alternatives. Something there could be a possibility depending on what it is and the locations. Also, there is, depending on what roads they are, that can come down to, is there stuff like ODOT does have the systemic safety for pedestrians, which can be if there's big corridors, something like that can be looked at, if there's concern for an area, being able to look at seeing about funding for something like that. A lot of it's going to come down to where it is, with who the roads are owned by and what type of programs are actually eligible based on that. So at this point in time, does anybody have any questions that they want to bring up, concerns beyond that? I will have to get you back to you on exactly which roads are eligible for TAP and what those guidelines are, because I'm not sure about those off the top of my head. So if anybody has anything else, they can put in the chat, questions and answers. Raise your hand if you'd like to bring it up. Yeah, see, I'd like to hear more about road diets. One was recommended for East Market Street in Howland. Of course, we completed last year. It's a costly project. We need assistance assembling a funding strategy. Um, so road diets are really good for safety. Um, so the road diet comes down to is often gets referred to as stuff like a lane reconfigurations, or they can be involved with looking at what type of reducing the roadway down to have a few different benefits. One is you're slowing traffic down because of the fact you're reducing lanes down. You're also can often be times providing a easier way for cars to turn, and reducing lane crossings is a really big part of it. It can be hard for pedestrians to cross lanes when you have 4 lanes. The 3 lanes, if it gets dropped down to, can make it easier to cross. Plus, sometimes you'll be tied in. You add in a bike lane along the side, or sometimes it's just parking, depending on the community's needs and desires. So overall, they are really great for promoting safety. Funding can go through a few different programs through ODOT. There is some potential for federal funding as well. Definitely something that could be talked about at looking into how we could look at what options are available and what's to be done, and making sure we got a full plan in place for that. Road diet in Boardman Township. I'm assuming you're talking about Glenwood, which is supposed to be coming, I believe, later this year. It's still planned for construction. What type of funding is available for lighted stop signs for rural areas? So looking through some of that information, depends a lot on which roadways for some of that information, based on what their functional class is. There is some sign funding out there for a few different reasons. There's some abbreviated safety funding that can be looked at for something like that. Potentially systemic safety funding is something that could be done if you're still looking at maybe a wider area. Smaller projects are sometimes a little bit harder to fund, just because of the project's availability for funding is often a lot more focused on large projects, but definitely something we can go through and take a look at what locations you're looking at, what type of data is showing for there, and seeing if there is potential for trying to apply for one of the different funding sources that we've got. And also, a lot of time, one of the things that can come up for a lot of these different locations is that even if we may not have a funding source right now, if we know about some of the stuff that comes up or things that people care about or interested in knowing about, there might be funding that comes available in the future, which can also, will at least have some information to be able to provide then. Small project versus large project is a pretty, not really a defined boundary there, but a lot of funding sources can be looking at $250,000, $500,000 projects, or where it starts getting bigger. It's where a lot more of the big funding availability is, but there are still some projects that can go underneath that. So, and also, I plan anybody that's been bringing up questions, I'm going to make sure and reach out and follow up and check out what type of additional information we can provide and help out with.
So Grant, I know you mentioned it really briefly again toward the end as far as what your plans are for the future of this webinar series. But since there was a good handful of people that joined in late, I think it could be worth revisiting that first slide or two, maybe just mentioning what you plan on doing in the future, what everybody here and people who weren't able to join, what they can do to provide you thoughts, comments on, some future webinar opportunities. Seeing some questions regarding road diets, different funding sources, kind of makes me think those are maybe good opportunities for future webinars. So I think it's just worth running through that one more time.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. So again, with these webinars, a lot of the goal, trying to provide the questions and answer, providing information in a easy format. We want to be able to make sure that we're connecting with everybody, providing information in a simple way, and it's very, very casual about how it's being presented. If you have questions that come up after the webinar is over, or if you have questions that you don't feel comfortable going into talking about right now, or you're not sure about, you can absolutely reach out to me through email or phone. Um, I I enjoy getting to talk to everybody. I want to make these connections with everybody to be able to do more for the region. So glad to hear any questions or comments from anybody at any point in time about this stuff. One important part of our socials is being recorded, so it'll be online. So for people who came in late, also they'll go up and you'll be able to see what was there. And also that way, when we do each meeting, having them online. So if you can't make it to one of those meetings, we'll still be providing that information online as well. So some of the information we had about like what we're doing with the series is for the awareness gaps, people who may not know all this information because it's a lot, and we've got a lot of different people who have different backgrounds or have been involved in this for different lengths of time, and wanting to make sure that we're being able to provide information to anybody at this point in time. The funding confusion, there's a lot of different sources out there. It changes over time. So being able to get that information about what's currently funding opportunities and even potentially what's coming up. Wanting to provide information about data accessibility because of the fact that there's a lot of data, and it's what I'm really passionate about, and being able to help communities use this data for their planning efforts. Part of this comes down to that we've always done it this way, is there's lots of communities that might have people are doing something but not knowing that they've looked at new ways of doing things or alternative ways of doing things and what other options may exist. Hoping to keep everything short and entertaining. Easy access of information, dialogue alongside of being able to communicate and talk about these different issues. Want to develop communication and connections outside of this so that people will be able to know that they can reach out and connect and talk about this information. Some of the focus areas is going to be pedestrians, bicyclists, run off the road, crashes, your roadway departures, looking at intersections, managing the speed and risk along roadways, looking at the planning, funding, and data, and our special topics focus. A lot of focus I have is going to be looking at a lot of the FHWA's proven safety countermeasures, which are amazing resource that provides a lot of great ways of dealing with roadway issues, in ways that have been studied and documented for why these are effective in large amount of time. And I want to go more into some of the details on some of those. Some of those are stuff like roadway diets and lighting and stuff like that that can come up, and be having a lot of focus into those areas. And yeah, I said, for attending, want to have anybody who has anything to do with the roadway planning or safety efforts. Focuses on officials, engineers, planners, but also safety advocates, community groups, people who are passionate and want to know more and understand better what's going on their roadways. need great people to have involved. And if you know people who might want to do this, invite them and get them to come. Um, so a question about the TAP systemic fund. Um, so yeah, so some of the stuff like the lighting is something that can be covered by the systemic safety if it's over the areas. Um, definitely would have to take a look at which roadways it is and how that falls, because there's some different data that goes into it, such as the ODOT has an active transportation demand and accessibility data that goes into what they consider to be more higher priority for funding for that. That would have to be looked at for seeing how high it ranks for that roadway sections, but it is a possibility for that, um, for their pedestrian safety, looking at lighting. The TAP is some aspect, something I'd have to get back to you on knowing more. Yeah, I can absolutely get the uh, link to the ODOT active transportation priority map, which, yeah, I can get that to you. Um, is there anybody else have any questions or concerns or anything, locations that they want to talk about or anything along that? Or also if anybody knows something that they'd like to see being brought up as next topics. All right. Well, I am very excited about getting to continue these webinars, and I want to make sure that we're getting some this information out. Anybody has any thoughts they'd like to see for what they felt worked well in this presentations, or what they think could change, or what information they need, feel free to reach out to me. My information is right there. It's also on our website. Um, I want to hear from everybody that's interested in the safety stuff, and there's a lot of other people in this community. ODOT does a lot of great work in this area, and District 4 is wonderful to work with. So we're able to do a lot of connections there and have great relationships with them. We've got Mahoning County and Trumbull County both have a safe communities, and safe communities are organizations that aren't dealing with this safety issue within their community, doing stuff like we do fatality reviews, and they are doing a lot of great work trying to get to schools with trying to provide information about impaired driving. They attend lots of events to get this information out to more of a general public, and they do a lot of great work there. And they also are often looking for more people to be involved, which is a great other way to get connected. People who've had some questions, I'll absolutely am gonna plan to follow up and check up and see if there's anything additional we can tie in, and I'll be getting some information out very, very soon about what we'll talk about next time. And we'll be getting the recording put up online for everybody else. So thank you all very, very much. I am very glad to get to talk about this stuff with everybody, and I can't wait to talk to you guys next month. Thank you.